And hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge back once again with yet another episode of my ongoing weekly series Valiant to the Last, in which I read the entirety of the Valiant comic universe since the 2012 reboot from the beginning in the best order I can work out, and generally deluxe edition by deluxe edition. Today we're not looking at a deluxe edition. Today's going to be a very short video just talking about a small mini series because we're now reading Eternal Warrior comics. Last week we read an uncollected series of Eternal Warrior comics, or rather uncollected as a deluxe edition. So I just did one of these talking slideshow videos there talking about that series, which was 8 issues, 2 different story arcs, 2 trade paperbacks. And that was a great series, really enjoyed it. Some nods towards the 4001 AD kind of era. And yeah, what I thought I'd do this week, and this is what I gave you all as homework from last week, was reading the follow-up miniseries, which is a simple 3 issue miniseries called Eternal Warrior Days of Steel that came out in 2014. I think the reason it's called Days of Steel is because I think back in the original Valiant days, back in 1990s, back then, there was an Eternal Warrior series called something like Fist of Steel or Fury of Steel or something like that. So I guess this is cashing in on that idea in terms of nomenclature and nostalgia and so on. And I totally get that. Um, that said, it works very well as a standalone story. It's a complete standalone 3 issue story. It has nothing to do with the previous 8 issues we talked about last week. I cannot see it having any bearing whatsoever on future stories. It's a complete self-contained and closed simple Eternal Warrior story, basically. Yes, I mean the timeline of the story is about 30 years, but in the context of Eternal Warrior's lifespan, that's not a great amount of time, not a huge amount of time. Um, so what's the story like? Well, it's just 3 issues that are actually normal length. They came out in 2014. They were written by Peter Milligan, who's not a bad writer, not a great writer, and yeah, it was okay. It was a decent story, but it didn't really seem to be evocative of all of the sort of wider Valiant universe. The one I talked about last week had nods towards 4001 AD and a variety of other things like that. This wasn't that at all. It was just a story set in like olden days, like ancient times. I don't know, there were like Hungarians and the Ottoman Empire and Magyars. I don't know what Magyars are, like just another marauding race from back in the day, I guess. And basically, it's just him just like killing people and then like doing a thing, and the thing's kind of interesting. It's not a bad story. I know I sound like I'm not interested, but it's not a bad story. It's just not a great story. I can totally see why this is overlooked. I can totally see why this wasn't collected in a deluxe edition. Um, Read it if you can get it, but I can't see this fitting into the wider, larger narrative at all. Yeah, that's it. Eternal Warrior, Days of Steel, 3 issues. That was this week's homework. Nice and quick, really. What we do next week? Now, this is where it gets interesting. The last page of the last issue of Days of Steel says you will next see Gilad, the Eternal Warrior, in the miniseries The Valiant. Now, The Valiant is a series we've already talked about. It's the series that I did quite a while ago in one of my earlier videos. God, I can't remember the number it is. I'll put an image on screen here so you can find it amongst the playlist. But that video is the next video in this series. So you should read The Valiant and see what's going on there. Um, I'm thinking I might reread it, so I might reread it and do that video next week. Or what I'm more likely to do is just reread it and then actually read the thing after that, and then do a video next week, just briefly recapping the Valiant, and then talking about the series after that. Now, the series after that, I was planning on looking at the deluxe edition, Wrath of the Eternal Warrior, but looking at the publishing timelines, I genuinely think that what I should read after Eternal Warrior Days of Steel is the Valiant, which I will do. Probably won't do a dedicated video, but I will give you a recap. And then I need to read the Book of Death Deluxe Edition. I'm pretty sure that's next. I mean, I'm guessing here, I'm speculating. Reading guides online generally suck. That's why I'm working this out as I go. But I think what I need next is the Book of Death Deluxe Edition, which is a whale. It is the whaliest of whales. It is so hard to track down, so hard to find. I'm fortunate I have the deluxe edition. If you don't have that, then track it down online from Amazon or eBay. After seller prices are ridiculous. But yeah, that I guess is going to be the homework for next time. If you haven't read The Valiant, which I read as part of an earlier read through, I believe as part of my Bloodshot read through, then you need to read that. But next week's video is going to very quickly recap The Valiant and then dive straight into the Book of Death, because that is the next deluxe edition. And it's going to be an overhead camera video of me going through that deluxe edition step by step, which has been a little while. Um, I really hope there's some decent weather between now and then for me to actually get some decent light and be able to record that. But that is the plan. So that is your homework, Book of Death. All right then. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. As always, please follow me on Twitter at I am Thomas Judge, where I will post a daily review of whatever comics I've been reading. You can get an idea of what I'm up to on the channel. And as always, please support the channel by heading over to Amazon.com and checking out my prose novel about superheroes. It's a completely original piece of work. The first episode in it is called Arrivals, and the series as a whole is called No Gods or Kings. You can find an excerpt of that on my website, nogodsorkings.com. Until next time, everybody, stay classy.